Hey everybody, it's Kelly. I'm back with another episode of Ask a Therapist. So today we are going to talk about crying. We're going to talk about tears and emotions. And I have a couple of questions that we're all sort of bundling together today in order to get at the root of the question. And so the overall question we're going to talk about is, do therapists like it when their clients cry? So I find that question really interesting because I don't know that there's a yes or no answer to that. I am not uncomfortable with my clients crying. If that's something that they need to do, I want them to cry. So if it's not something they do, if they're not comfortable with tears, I don't want them to then, because I don't want a client to push them into something that they're not ready to do or a place they're not ready to go. And so on a personal level, I am not afraid of tears, my own or someone else's. I think tears are extraordinarily useful when it comes to understanding ourselves and expressing ourselves and comprehending our emotions and processing our emotions also. There's just a lot there when it comes to tears. So I'm not afraid of them. I'm not ashamed of my own tears. I would love to think that we live in a world where one day no one's going to be ashamed of tears and no one's going to be afraid to let them out. But I can just do my part right now to help my clients get okay with their tears when they do need to come. So if I have a client who's in here and they're talking to me and they start crying, one of the things that I hear a lot is, I'm sorry. I have a lot of clients that apologize to me for crying, and you never have to apologize to your therapist for having an emotion, because that is what we're here to help you process, is your emotions and your responses to external stimuli and internal stimuli, and how you can proceed through your life in better touch with your emotions and in better touch with your needs. If you're crying, you don't have to apologize for crying. And if you're not crying, you also don't have to apologize for that, because in reality, your tears or your lack of tears really reflect you and where you're at with your emotions. Or sometimes I have clients who won't cry because they grew up in a house where they were always told not to cry. And so if that's the case, why would I expect them then to cry in session with me if that's not something they're comfortable with? In an ideal situation, I'd love for them to get to a place where they are not embarrassed of tears. Whether they use them or not is totally different, but that they're not embarrassed of it and don't feel like it's shameful. But that's not where everybody is when they come in here, and that's not a hill that I'm willing to battle on unless the client needs to. So there's that. Clients crying in my office with me. I I like it and I don't like it. It depends on whether or not it was therapeutic for the client. So there's that. The other thing, though, while we're talking about crying, is a little pet peeve, pet project of mine, and it has to do with tissues. 1 second. Okay, so here I have a box of tissues. In my office, I have a L-shaped seating arrangement, and then I'm sitting in an armchair across from them. And these tissues are always on the couch where they're visible, but not necessarily in the way. So they're always there. And then there's always a trash can next to the couch where the client can see it and they can throw their tissues away or any other trash they might have. Those are just sort of creature comfort things that if clients don't have to go looking for things, they're going to be more comfortable in your space and they're going to be more comfortable to do what they need to do. So that's one. But now I want you to do a little role play with me, audience, and you are talking to me. We're just friends. You are somebody in my life who I care about, and you've come to me to tell me about something going on in your life, right? So you're talking to me, it's very emotional, and you start crying, okay? And I'm listening, and then I do this, and I pick up these tissues and I hand them to you. Go ahead, take one. No, for real, take one. What I did in either handing you the box or taking a tissue out and handing it to you, I have stopped your process maybe at a critical point. Because when somebody gets to a point where they are crying about something that has happened, we as humans have a natural reaction to them. We tend to try to get their crying to stop. And it's usually for a good reason. It's usually because we care about the person. We project how we feel about tears and how we feel about those emotions onto them and assume they don't like it. And so we try to get it to stop. So you have a friend who's crying and you want to give them a hug or you want to hand them a tissue without them asking for it. What you're doing there with the best of intentions is you are stopping their process in order to help your own. And if you're cool with that, then you're cool with that. But if you're not cool with that, then I would encourage you to think about what you do in reaction to a crying friend before you do it. And the reason for that is the message I'm giving somebody when I say, here you go, have a tissue, is your face is messed up because you've been crying, or I don't find crying acceptable or an attractive trait in someone, and so you need to stop that, or your crying is bothersome to me. They have to stop their crying in order to, take care of their face. And if someone asks you for a tissue, that's entirely different. If someone asks you for something to wipe their tears or their face on in general, that's very different. If someone asks you for a hug, that's also very different. Give them that hug. But anything that we do that's initiated by us is usually connected to our desire to stop the pain in the person we care about. And while that's a very noble thing, it's not healing, it's not therapeutic, and it's not long-term helpful. I say that because I see it so much, both in working with teens and working in the field. I see it in training events and stuff too, where other therapists will, hand a box of tissues to somebody or hand tissue to somebody who's crying over something. And I just want to take it out of their hands and say, stop, let's think about what we're doing here. And that's why I'm saying this, because I don't think that it's intentional in any way. I wrote a blog post about it recently and it got a fair amount of traction. And so I just want to make sure I'm saying it verbally too, so you kind of hear the logic behind it, because sometimes it's easier to hear it than to write about it. So yeah, there. Tissues, extremely helpful. Have them available for people, but also don't make them use them if they don't want to. Anyway, so keep sending in your questions. I love to answer them, no matter how bizarre you think they are. I get a lot of people who are like, oh, this question's so weird. And it's really not. It's really an understandable question that you would have. So yeah, send them in. I would love to hear from you. Thanks and have a great day.